actor Alec Baldwin is going on trial for the shooting death of Halyna Hutchins, I take a closer look at the jury pool and the type of person one expert thinks Alec Baldwin needs on his jury. I'm Angenette Levy, and this is Crime Fix, coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. This is the courthouse right behind me where Alec Baldwin is going on trial. He faces an involuntary manslaughter charge. More on that in just a moment. Jury selection in Alec Baldwin's trial begins on Tuesday. 70 prospective jurors will be summoned to the courthouse here on Tuesday, and they will be asked a series of questions by the special prosecutor and the defense. Now, while jury selection doesn't begin until Tuesday, Alec Baldwin actually arrived at the courthouse on Monday morning for the remaining pretrial motions in his case. He had waived his appearances for pretrial proceedings, but he was here in Santa Fe on Sunday, so I kind of expected him to appear in court this morning. Now, back to those 70 prospective jurors who will be summoned to the courthouse on Tuesday and possibly Wednesday if necessary. The jurors were not given a special supplemental questionnaire with more detailed questions about who they are and their general beliefs. That didn't happen in this case. It happens in other cases. Baldwin faces an involuntary manslaughter charge with two alternatives. One of those charges contends that Baldwin was negligent when handling the Colt 45 on the set when it fired and killed Halyna Hutchins. The other involuntary manslaughter charge states that Baldwin caused Hutchinson's death by failing to exercise due care. Santa Fe County has a population of about 154,000 people, and it's considered more liberal politically. But when I've spoken to people in Santa Fe, they told me that there are a lot of gun owners in this state. That could become an important topic of conversation when it comes to selecting potential jurors. One man I spoke with here in Santa Fe said it's kind of like the Wild West out here. He said that a lot of people own guns, and there are a lot of people, though, that take gun safety very seriously. So that could also be an issue in the trial. I want to take just a moment to tell you about this awesome app that I've tried that will give you cash back on things like gas and food. It's called Upside. It's not a confusing rewards or points system. Upside gives you real money back that can go straight into your bank account or onto a gift card. When I pump gas or order takeout, I always check Upside for the best deals. Why not get cash back when you fill up or order food? Here's how it works. Download Upside and look at the offers. When you find one, claim it and then pay with your debit or credit card as you always do. I've used Upside to get cash back on gas and pizza. I got more than $5 back on my gas and more than $3 back on my pizza. That's $9 or so on both, and you cannot beat that. Upside works at many popular gas stations and restaurants. So to find out how much you could earn, click on the link in the description or on the QR code on your screen and use the promo code CRIMEFIX to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CRIMEFIX for an extra 25 cents back on your first tank of gas. Richard Gabriel is a renowned jury consultant. He helped pick juries for Casey Anthony and O.J. Simpson. Richard, thanks for coming on. What kind of jury does Alec Baldwin need and want?
Well, he wants a jury who has, I think, a little bit of awareness of him and of the case itself. Because I think one of the problems the prosecutors have is that they've already managed to convict the armorer in the case. And so I think some jurors may be saying, I'm not sure why Alec Baldwin is here if you've already convicted someone who you thought was responsible for the killing of Ms. Hutchins. And so I think that what he's looking for is people who are also, possibly gun owners who understand this, although the gun ownership issue can really cut both ways. And I think both prosecutors and the defense attorneys have to look at gun ownership because there are some types of gun owners who are very particularly fastidious about how they maintain their guns and how they operate their guns. And so there's some people who say, I would never be this reckless. I would always be checking the chamber to find out if there's live rounds in there. There are some people who are like, accidents happen. It is the job of the armorer. So gun ownership, I think, is going to be an issue for both sides in the case. I think a lot of times Alec Baldwin might just be looking for somebody to say, terrible accidents can happen. And that can happen on the set here. And we've already found somebody responsible for this. Or that this really is a civil lawsuit. Because one of the challenges that I see in this case is that there's a criminal negligence charge on this thing, and it also goes to a recklessness. That's a challenge, I think, for Alec Baldwin's defense, in that seems like a lower threshold for a jury to actually find sort of a recklessness or negligence on the part. And yet there are some jurors who I think say this may be more of a civil case than a criminal case.
Now, you had interestingly mentioned how they had already had a trial on this, and that happened earlier this year. The armorer was convicted rather swiftly within 3 hours of a charge of involuntary manslaughter. So they've picked a jury already from this county this year. Now we're in the middle of summer. It's going to be around a 9-day trial or so, 2-week trial, something in there. So does that pose a challenge? Because it's all been out there, and we know that jurors don't typically, people are going about their normal lives. They aren't just glued to these things all of the time. Some people are news junkies and watch this stuff a lot and pay close attention to it, while others may not. They have kids, they have a job, they're doing what they do every day and not necessarily fixated on this criminal case.
I think that's right. When you're in the middle of it, like I've been involved in a lot of these bigger cases, you tend to think everybody's aware of your case. And the truth is, there's a lot of people who aren't paying attention to this, who don't pay that much attention to even who Alec Baldwin is in this. So I think there is that sort of understanding. That being said, I think both sides are going to be really paying attention to who is aware of this case. What do they know about the case? Did they follow the previous case? What do they know about Alec Baldwin? Because celebrity can play into these cases. I found early on when I was working on the O.J. Simpson case, there was a type of juror who just didn't want to believe that O.J. Simpson could have committed this, because there's a public persona there. And sometimes people really kind of get attached to that public persona, whether they like them or not, and sort of go, do I want to find this person guilty? Do I want to believe that they could have done something that's this reckless or this negligent? And so I think finding out people's awareness of his celebrity, I think, is going to be important for both sides.
Yeah, and that was really more of a whodunit, though, because they, I guess, could point possibly to other people. This is very clear. Alec Baldwin had a gun in his hand, and the gun fired, and sadly, this poor woman, Halyna Hutchins, was killed. And so the question is going to be, is he criminally liable? We know that he had the gun in his hand, but that's really not the question. The question is, did he commit a crime when this horrible event happened? So we have a population there of about 155,000 or so. Not a huge population, but big enough that you might be able to find people who aren't really paying that much of attention to this case, but maybe gun owners, as you mentioned. Do you think women might be better jurors for Alec Baldwin, or men, or does gender really matter here?
Gender, I don't think really matters. It really is the life experiences, such as gun ownership, and also attitudes. I think the other attitude that is really going to be key in a case like this is just in general, how do jurors feel about Hollywood in general and the responsibility? Because that's one of the sort of the underlying issues here. How responsible do you think that Hollywood is? How reckless are they with the people on their set? The accountability of somebody like Alec Baldwin as a producer in the film. Jurors can say he does have more responsibility because he's not just an actor. He is a producer on the film, therefore he has sort of a higher duty. And I think we're always looking at how do jurors attach significance, power, and responsibility to the defendant in the case. An issue that I think the prosecutors have has to do with the intentionality of this. Clearly, there's no intentionality. And I think some jurors really do believe in order to find somebody in a manslaughter charge where somebody was killed, that there had to have been some sort of intent. So this tension between sort of intentionality versus recklessness, or more of a civil standard of negligence, is going to be interesting to kind of evaluate how do jurors feel about those issues.
What would be maybe the number one question you would ask during voir dire, or maybe the top two questions?
So I think one of the questions is gun ownership. So how do you feel about gun ownership and the responsibilities of gun owners? That is going to be a full conversation. That's going to be a fastidiousness. I think another question that I would be spending time with has to do with a juror's occupation, because the meticulousness that a juror, like typically, we're in San Diego area. There might be some employees from that area. Engineers can, I think, be more problematic for the defense in this case, because somebody who's really fastidious and meticulous about things might hold Alec Baldwin and anybody who's a producer on this thing to a higher standard of ensuring the safety on the set there. So that's one thing I'd also be looking at. And then really, I think it's a really good question. I'm trying to think of what is the question here. Those are two, I think, fundamental questions that I'd be looking at in this particular case. I think just the responsibilities of, I would be asking, if I were Alec Baldwin's people, about the responsibilities of a producer on the set to ensure safety. Because how people believe about safety standards on the set is, I think, really going to be a backdrop to how they feel about what happened here. So I think that's going to be a key question. And I'm sure, as you well know, jury selection is really jury deselection. You are really trying to, when you're on one side, you're not trying to identify jurors who are going to be good for you. You're trying to identify those jurors who are going to be most negative towards your case and either eliminate them through a cause challenge or through a peremptory strike.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy, coming to you from the courthouse here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We will be here throughout the trial. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.